Navigating interpersonal relationships, both inside and outside of work, can sometimes be tricky. But what if I told you there is one tool that could help you when you're examining the subjects of emotional intelligence, unconscious bias, and conflict management? Well, there is. It's called the Ladder of Inference. The Ladder of Inference is a model of the steps we use to make sense of how we act or react to certain situations. It's a concept developed by a late Harvard professor named Chris Argyris. And it helps explain why we can look at the same set of evidence, or person, or situation, and come up with a very different conclusion than someone else. This might then cause us to react in a totally different way than someone else too. Let's take a look. The first rung at the bottom of the ladder focuses on all the observable data available to me externally in the world. For example, my team member is late to the meeting. On the next rung, I filter and select the data I want to pay attention to based on what I believe. My team member has been late to half of the meetings this month. Going up the ladder, I add meanings to the data that I select. So cultural and personal meanings based on the way that I see the world. My team member does not care about the job because they must have another job somewhere else. Next, I make assumptions based on those meanings. Why are they working 2 jobs? I can't handle 1 job. And I draw conclusions. They must like that job better than this job. Then I update my beliefs about the world based on the conclusions I make, which helps me to filter the data I select at the beginning of the process. Here's where it gets interesting. The final rung on the ladder at the very top is where I take actions based on my beliefs. I tell my colleagues what I think about the team member, and this minimizes their opportunities for advancement. So how does this relate to emotional intelligence, unconscious bias, and conflict management in our workplace? Great question. First of all, it is an action of emotional intelligence to understand that you have a ladder. Can you understand that your perspective may not be the only one based on the data that you selected and the cultural meanings that you placed on that data? What if the reason my coworker has been late is because they don't have a vehicle and they've had to rely on someone else to get to the meeting? The more you challenge your own thinking, the more emotionally intelligent you become. How might the ladder help you examine the concept of unconscious bias? The ladder helps us to see that what we may believe about someone may not be true, but perhaps it's related to what we've learned in the media or our own instilled belief system. We may have chosen only to see certain data that would prove what we may already believe. For example, do you see the way someone is dressed or their age and assume certain things based on that data? What if you focus on a person's age and then add a certain set of thoughts around that age? Maybe you see an older person and assume that people of a certain age are forgetful or don't know how to use technology. I make assumptions that the person I'm dealing with is like the others in the group because of my experiences. I draw conclusions and update my beliefs. The actions I take could be that I talk to the person's family member instead of to them because I assume they're cognitively impaired, or I assume that an older coworker doesn't text, so I don't include them on a group chat. The ladder helps us to make visible or conscious something that you may not have noticed you were doing ordinarily. Here's how it relates to conflict management. When a conflict occurs, take a moment to look at your ladder and determine what happened on your side. Then you might share your ladder and ask the person you're in conflict with to share their ladder. Maybe the conflict happened because you didn't see what your coworker saw, or you both chose different data from the same situation. By sharing your ladders, you might get a better understanding of someone else's actions. So the next time you have a conflict or you want a different outcome than what you're experiencing, pay attention to your ladder.